Now, this is kind of a funny story. There's a column here at PJ Media by Megan Fox, and the headline to this, Reparations Time, Kamala Harris's father says family descended from a Jamaican slave owner. Now, this is perfect because this points out the sheer hypocrisy and I think the genuine mental deficiencies of people we are told are brilliant on the left. Kamala Harris made some joke. The subject of whether she's black enough came up, as it always does in Democrat presidential politics. Is she black enough? And then some black civil rights leader, and I wish I could remember who. I don't remember who it was, but said of Kamala Harris, she got a white husband. This ain't flying. She can't get away. She can't run as an African American. She can't run as a black. She married to a white guy. Hey, that doesn't work for us. That's like they had debates over whether Obama was black enough because he's half white. And did Obama have slave blood? He didn't have slave blood. Does Kamala Harris have slave blood? She's from Jamaica. Well, in her defense of all this, she told some funny stories about how, I'm from Jamaica, where they smoke a lot of weed. And so, well, her father got livid at her. Her father blew up at her for creating this negative stereotype of people from Jamaica and let her have it in public. And he's done it again. Because Kamala Harris is on record as backing some form of reparations for slavery. In a recent interview, and I guess I keep mispronouncing her name. Snerdley, have you heard how her name is? Is it Kamala? Kamala Harris? Yeah, that's what I thought. But last week where people were correcting me, said, no, it's not Kamala, it's Kamala. Well, whatever. I just thought you might have had the definitive answer on this. In a recent interview, Kamala Harris agreed with the suggestion that government reparations for black Americans were necessary to address past discrimination. She later affirmed that support in a statement to the New York Times. We have to be honest that people in this country do not start from the same place or have access to the same opportunities. Right, and Bill Maher doesn't want you to have... The left doesn't want you to have these opportunities. The whole thing, they want to hoard all of this specialness for themselves. They don't want anybody sharing this. At any rate, she continued in an interview of some podcast called The Breakfast Club. I think we've got to address that again. It's back to the inequities. America has a history of 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow. We had legal segregation in America for a very long time. The Voting Rights Act was only strong for 50 years, and then they wiped it out with the United States Supreme Court in the Shelby decision. 22 states immediately thereafter put in place laws that one court found were crafted with surgical precision to have black people not be able to vote. So we have to recognize people aren't starting out on the same base in terms of their ability to succeed. And so we got to recognize that. We got to give people a lift up. And there are a number of ways to do that. Now, part of my initiative, again, around the LIFT Act is that same point. You lifting people up who are making less than $100,000 a year. What I want to do about rent is the same thing. What we need to do around education and understanding disparities, what we need to do, we have a history of racism in America. Her father, Donald J. Harris, wrote an extensive essay about the family's heritage in Jamaica at Jamaican Global Online in January, claiming to be the descendant of a famed slave owner. Her family is descendants of slave owners, not slaves. Kamala Harris's family, her father writes an essay in January stating that his family's heritage is the descendant of a famed slave owner in Jamaica. They have no history with slaves. Their descendancy is from slave owners. He wrote, my roots go back within my lifetime to my paternal grandmother, Miss Cherishie Brown, descendant of Hamilton Brown, who's on record as plantation and slave owner and founder of Brownstown, and to my maternal grandmother, Miss Iris. The Harris name comes from my paternal grandfather, Joseph Alexander Harris, landowner and agricultural produce exporter, who died in 19... And he goes on to describe how his family, he, and therefore his children, are descendants of slave owners, not of slave. In other words, Kamala Harris's ancestors presided over a real plantation. Her family, her ancestors owned people. Her father's out getting this on the record because he's not crazy about some of the things that she's out there saying. And now she wants to preside over the Democrat plantation. The first time her father upbraided her, she made some flippant comment about a stereotype of Jamaicans as they like to sit around and puff on weed all the time. And that really irritated. I think he's a professor at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. And it really irritated him. He wrote a piece castigating her. This was just in the past 2 or 3 weeks. I think she's got a whole bunch of publicity about her that is not actually warranted. I don't think she's that sharp on her feet. But anyway, all this stuff is coming out now as the Democrat campaign unfolds, and it's going to continue to come out because there's so many of them seeking the nomination, and they're going to be in a race to the extreme left. And this is just, I think, a hard. You know how many hypocrites are running around in that party? I know hypocrisy never attaches to them, but man, if we ever get a flood of reporting about their hypocrisy, then some of it by sheer volume is going to put out